site of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, so I would like to invite the whole public to have a look on it. Let's move over to Jade, circular economy. Jade, what would be your takeaways on this?
Yeah, thanks, Ruben. It was great to hear such a wide, such a good representation of the value chain. One thing that's stuck out to me throughout these conversations is the need to form a new value chain and the need to collaborate differently across that value chain. I mean, that's something that Hans alluded to, that Monique alluded to, that Bert and Kriti even. Accelerating the circular economy means creating new relationships, and it's been great to see and to hear how organizations today have been doing that. One or two things that have stuck out to me is when Bert mentioned that IKEA asked them, can we develop something from all the mistakes that we have made? And I think it's such an important way to think about the steps that we've already made as an industry. There are so many mistakes to learn from, and it's already been mentioned, there's a lot of product and a lot of fantastic technology out there already. Hans mentioned there is, volume and quality is something that we can easily overcome. And Monique mentioned, how important education is, and that's something that I think really resonates with me as well, because as Monique mentioned, we need constant innovation, and I think bringing the students and industry closer together to allow there to be a bilateral conversation about solutions that are needed, and on the side of the students being able to develop those solutions, I think that will only help to accelerate and to increase the scale that we need solutions to be run at. And it was really interesting to hear from Kriti how she's approached the supply chain on her end, and I think hearing from how the Indian market approaches sustainability and the barriers that she's had to overcome, I think is really fantastic. And I can only say, Kriti, carry on doing what you're doing. It's really great to hear. And I think those were a few of the points that stuck with me. Just to summarize it, I think education and innovation, as Monique so beautifully put it, remains very important.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your views on that and summarizing that for us, Jade. Thanks for being with us today as well, also to Chiara. And let's move over to our, let's say, final guest. We have Lewis Perkins of the Apparel Impact Institute. Lewis, very welcome to you from the other end of the world as well. It's in the middle of the night for you, I guess. So thanks a lot for joining us and staying up late for us. Could you please introduce yourself and your organization?
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to listen to you all today, and I'm in agreement with everything that I've seen. The work that we're doing at the Apparel Impact Institute is to identify and scale proven solutions across the apparel value chain, really focusing on some primary issues related to carbon reduction, water savings, chemical management, but going a little bit above the conversation of creating greater efficiency to actually accelerating more positive impact. And prior to this work, I was leading the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute and have been working with some of the people on this call, as well as many in the space of circular economy. And as we're looking at, ways in which we can actually help the industry achieve its 2030 targets related to carbon emissions reductions, circular economy is one of the leading strategies that needs to be implemented. And I don't know if I can share my screen for one moment, but I'd like to show one slide that should be able to come across. Is that good?
Yep.
This is the result of an upcoming report that we've been developing with the World Resource Institute related to the focus areas or interventions for the industry related to achieving the science-based targets. And of course, water stewardship and scarcity, along with chemical management, material impact, is all bundled within some of these same environmental metrics. But what we're looking at here is really a focus on the scaling towards renewable energy and the scaling towards circular, efficient, and better materials, and the systems and circular models that will support that. So in this particular visual, what you're looking at this graphic is across each stage of the supply chain for production of apparel from tier 4, which is raw material extraction, to processing, yarn preparation, to the material production, and final garment assembly. We have a tremendous amount of opportunity to maximize efficiencies. So a lot of the models around better pattern making, dead stock reuse, reclaiming and upcycling of materials, even before it gets to the consumer level, is a tremendous amount of opportunity. And that's number one. And then as we're looking at scaling preferred materials, that's a lot of the lower carbon, lower water and chemical use materials within production, whether that's recycled content materials or organic, cotton, other types of better preferred materials. And then the acceleration and development of next generation materials, which is another area of where we're seeing an overlap with circularity, because some of those next generation materials may be actually coming from other industries, such as food and agriculture, where we're looking at agro waste that may be upcycled into new cellulosic fabrics and or other types of materials. And obviously, when we talk about the circular models that support all of this, we're looking at keeping products in continuous play. So whether that's some of the business models we've heard around ensuring that the fabrics are reused or the materials are reclaimed, but it also looks at more shared economy, resell, repair as models that complement the ability to keep these materials in a more efficient use over time. So I will stop sharing my screen, but I wanted to show that because I think a good visual does help us kind of understand what the key focus areas are where circularity can play a strong impact.
It definitely does, Lewis. Thanks for sharing that with us, and gives us a very good insight also, because of course that's the topic of today: how to mitigate climate impact, and that's some concrete steps to take. And what about just your vision of what we've heard earlier today? Of course, a lot of companies from Holland, and we are used that the government takes steps and that we follow the government. But maybe in US that sometimes also the other way around, that businesses take the lead. How do you compare the US to maybe Europe and maybe also Asia?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and as described in some of the previous videos we saw, the textile waste in the North America is obviously tremendous, and a lot of the policies that are being created and driven out of Europe are going to directly impact, I think, large markets within the US, because once we change production models in one region of the world, it helps us to scale those globally. I live in California. We're more likely to implement some of these extended producer responsibility approaches towards textile, like we've done in packaging, single-use plastics, straws. I think that from a North American perspective, that's probably West Coast is where you'll see a lot of this driven, which will also impact the rest of the United States. Yeah.
Okay. I agree. And what maybe to wrap up, Lewis, if taking everything together, what you've seen today, so some of the great examples, and next week on the 12th we have a round table of the Minister of Environment of Holland, together with the host of Canada for World Circular Economy Forum side event. What would be your main points if we would wrap up the whole discussion of today, and what's your takeaway on that?
Yeah, I think that as I just sort of was leaning into it a minute ago, the opportunity for policy related to textile recovery and collection is one that's come up as a theme throughout this last hour and a half, and one that I think needs to directly be supported, that industry will adopt these technologies for upcycling materials, these collection systems, but policy or regulation will drive the finance more quickly. And that's what we need, frankly. We need a tremendous amount of investment to put the infrastructure in place and quickly. So that is sort of my overarching recommendation.
Thanks a lot for that, Lewis. And I would like to, well, thank all the speakers of today and for joining us, for taking the time, for staying up late, Lewis, and for getting up early on for some of us as well. So I would like to recommend to tune in next week, the 12th of April, also for the World Circular Economy Forum side event that's hosted by the Minister of Environment, Stientje van Veldhoven, together with the Canadian host of the World Circular Economy Forum. So thanks again to all speakers and for sharing their ideas and their recommendations, and especially those on the other side of the globe. And thanks also for everyone who prepared this session. It was great. I hope it was inspiring for everyone, and we would like to stay in touch. So thank you for joining, and looking forward to seeing you next time.